Governor of college football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's
Two
CJ
great
on
defensive
the
minds.
track.
They have to be better on that side of the ball. Welcome to another marvelous episode of Governor of College Football. I am the Governor of College Football. We got a lot to talk about today. It's been a minute since I went live just on this show. This is my baby. This is my heart. Like I said, it's been a minute. Been doing a lot with College Football Showdown, a lot with Overreaction Monday. Been doing a lot for the Instagram. Shout out to my guy, Brad. The Instagram is growing plentifully. So shout out to everybody that's about to be watching this. We're going to talk a few things today. We're going to talk about the AP poll, top 25, how we feeling about it. If you saw either Overreaction Monday or College Football Showdown, you probably already kind of have an opinion on how I'm feeling about this. But I figure we might as well go over it here. Let's get into the next slide. So we're going to talk about these teams. We're going to go 1 through 25, and then I'll kind of let you know how I'm feeling about each team. So at number 1, we got Georgia. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Oregon. Number 4, Texas. Number 5, Alabama. Number 6, Ole Miss. Number 7, Notre Dame. Number 8, Penn State. Number 9, Michigan. Number 10, Florida State. Number 11, Missouri. Number 12, Utah. Number 13, LSU. Number 14, Clemson. Number 15, Tennessee. Number 16, Oklahoma. Number 17, Oklahoma State. Number 18, Kansas State. Number 19, Miami. 20, Texas A&M. 21, Arizona. 22, Kansas. 23, USC. 24, NC State. 25, Iowa. So those are our top 25 teams. Overall, I think the AP poll got most of this right. Of course, there are a few teams here and there, and if you're a fan of a fan base, you're probably feeling away about some of this. But, overall, not bad at all. Like, when you look at it, the grand scheme of things, you can argue Georgia is number 1. You can also argue that, of course it didn't happen, but you can also argue that, hey, if Georgia would have made the college football playoff last year, things might have been a little bit different. Ohio State being number 2, they invested a lot this offseason. When I say a lot, they opened up the checkbook. I think the brass there, as long as the faithful as well, are just tired of losing to Michigan. Yes, it's only been 3 years, but it's felt like an eternity if we're being honest with ourselves. But head coach by Ryan Day, they were able to pick up Chip Kelly in the offseason as offensive coordinator. Initially, it was Bill O'Brien. It's a little weird. And then don't forget that Brian Hartline is their offensive coordinator as well. They're returning 65% of their production. They got an SP Plus ranking of number 2. And you'll see a lot with a lot of this that the SP Plus rankings kind of align with this. Number 5th recruiting class during this recruiting cycle and 16th strength of schedule. Number 3, Oregon. Oregon's going to be a really good team. And I think in the grand scheme of things, when we look at this, we look at their team and, you look at the overall body of work and you look at what Dan Lanning is building, that team is going to be pretty damn good. For Texas, what can't you say about Texas? They did have 2, honestly, like, it was just hard to hear that they lost 2 running backs in fall camp. It's just frustrating. 5th, Alabama. A lot of people kind of wondering what's going on with Alabama this season. Hey, everywhere Kalen DeBoer went, he's been able to win. But they're only returning 53% of their production. SP Plus ranking 5, and that's the same as their AP poll ranking. 2nd recruiting class, and then number 6 strength of schedule. Ole Miss is a team that I believe in this year, and I'm kind of going to make a prediction, and you guys will hear it first on here, that I believe Ole Miss is going to win it all this season. I just think they got a lot going for themselves. But Lane Kiffin is just what he's been able to do with the program. The key factor is going to be Pete Golden, but they're returning 70% of their production. They got a guy in Jackson Dart that will certainly be in the Heisman conversation. SP Plus ranking of 8, 21st recruiting class, 22nd strength of schedule. I'm really liking Ole Miss a lot. Notre Dame is kind of a wild card here, and they're a wild card for a couple of reasons. We talked to the head of the college football playoff committee. I believe he's the executive director, Rich Clark. We talked to him, my guy Jalen and I, at ACC Media Days. Jalen even pulled him to the side. He was like, yo, so what's the case with Notre Dame? Like, is their only path in at large? And he was like, yes, unfortunately, because they're not in the conference. He said, we want to award conferences. Rich Clark was also saying, like, hey, we want it to feel that anybody has a chance to make the playoffs. So, unfortunately, what kind of fortunately for Notre Dame, they're independent. But with their only route being at large, they're going to have to do a lot of winning this year. Number 8, Penn State. You get the feeling with Penn State that, like, hey, all right, James Franklin, like, when is it going to be time? Like, when are we going to sit here and make the difference? You got a difference maker at quarterback. It'll be interesting to see what Andy Kolonicki will get out of this offense this year. Tom Allen and that defensive coordinator, they're returning 67% of their production. Got an SP Plus ranking of 7, 15th recruiting class in this cycle, and 33rd strength of schedule. Hopefully Penn State could be in the thick of things. Now in Michigan, why does it feel like a national champion is being overlooked the way Michigan is being overlooked? And I get it. They lost a lot of pieces there. I think they have the least returning production. Arguably, maybe out of all Power 5 schools, they're only returning 36% of their production. But, you know, a good point of their nucleus is there. They got Don Week, Martindale as their defensive coordinator. And it'd be interesting to see how Sharon Moore does. We did get a chance to see him while Harbaugh was out last season, kind of run things. So it'd be kind of interesting to see who's going to be the difference maker at quarterback for Michigan this upcoming season. But SP Plus ranking at 6. 16th recruiting class, 18th strength of schedule for Michigan. Florida State at 10. Florida State, I feel like, is another team that's a wild card. This team deserves to have a chip on their shoulder, if we're being honest. I know a lot of people say, well, hey, they don't deserve to be in a college football playoff. Look what happened in their next game against Georgia. So, if that's the take you want to take, go ahead and take it. But, you know, we weren't making these same claims about Washington. They won their conference. They went to the college football playoff. And I know Jordan Travis was hurt, but you know, if you win a Power 5 conference, it was then, of course, we call them Power 4 conferences. You go undefeated and you win your conference championship, you deserve a shot in the college football playoff. Mizzou just happens to be one of those teams I like an awful lot. And it's really because, one, Eli Drinkowitz, I believe he has everybody bought in down in Columbia. But if you look at their return on production, they're at 71%. SP Plus ranking at 11. Recruiting class was 20th this past cycle. And their strength of schedule, they got the easiest schedule, if there is such a thing, in the SEC this year. That's going to bode well. Utah Utes, how are they going to look in the Big 12 this season? I think Utah has just been a staple. It's just been phenomenal what Utah's been able to do. You know, over the years, like, they're always in the top 10 of, like, highest grossing college football programs. Kyle Whittingham definitely runs a nice ship there. It'll just be interesting to see how they're looking. They're returning 66% of their production. SP Plus ranking is 18th. They had the 59th recruiting class and 72nd strength of schedule. LSU at 13. That's a team with a lot of changes. You got changes at quarterback. Mike Denbrock is no longer down in the Big Easy. At 14, you got Clemson. It's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like with Dabo Swinney, because of his inability to use the transfer portal, it's almost like they forgot about Dre almost when it comes to Dabo Swinney. It's like a lot of people forget what he's been able to do in the ACC, how dominant this Clemson team has been able to be in the ACC. It'll be interesting how things play out for them this year. Tennessee, if you feel like, there's a dark horse in the SEC that's kind of flying under the radar, and maybe Joey Hazel and Josh Heupel is kind of liking where they flying at. I really like that defense coordinator, Tim Banks, a lot. They're returning 48% of their production, SP Plus ranking of 16, 14th recruiting class in the nation, but they have the 8th toughest schedule in the nation. So it'll be interesting to see what Nico and company will be able to do. Oklahoma. I feel like Oklahoma is one of those teams that when you look at Oklahoma, you look at, okay, they're making this transition to the SEC. I don't think people understand how physical it is in the SEC. And it's like, wow, we give a pass to Texas. We're not going to give that same pass to Oklahoma. Two of the highest grossing college football programs they're annually 1 and 2 for the highest grossing schools. So the resources are plentiful. I don't want to take that away from them, but it's just interesting to see if I'm looking at a team, I'm saying this team probably is ranked a little bit too high. To me, it's Oklahoma, only because I'm not sure how well they'll adjust to the physicality of the SEC. Oklahoma State Cowboys, my guy Jalen, man. Shout out to my guy Jalen. It's my co-host of College Football Showdown. He's pegged them as a team that's going to win the Big 12 this season. We know they'll be able to run the ball. They got some stud defensively, especially at linebacker, my guy Nick Martin. But they're a team that, looking at it, I feel like the Big 12 is wide open. I feel the same way about the ACC, but the Big 12 is really wide open. If you just look at them, they're returning 85% of their production, so I get why a lot of people like them. Iowa State's returning a lot of production as well. 20th SP plus ranking, 56th recruiting class, 62nd strength of schedule. I think things will bode well for Oklahoma State. The team that I have winning initially was Arizona. I had to change of heart. I'm not going to lie. My guy Moon helped me with that. It's that team in the Little Apple, man. Kansas State, they have a change of offensive coordinator, but I think Colin and Riley will do just fine. 59% return on production, 17th SP plus ranking, 57th recruiting class, and 70th strength of schedule. I think Kansas State will be just fine this year. Miami, me and my boy Jalen got a bet on Miami this year as far as how many wins they're going to get. I think they're going to be pretty daggone good in the ACC this year. 20th Texas A&M. When you look at a team in Texas A&M, resources are plentiful in College Station. They've always had the ability to recruit, and you think like, hey, can Mike Elko bring it similarly to what he was able to do in Durham last year? Granted, he didn't leave Durham in the best way, but it is what it is. Arizona, I mentioned them a little bit earlier at 21. What can't you say about them? I like Arizona a lot. It'll be interesting to see, will we feel the effects of Jed Fish being gone? So that's what I'm kind of interested to see with Arizona. 22, Kansas. And Kansas just has the $1 million question. That quarterback is, can they stay healthy? If they can stay healthy, they can be dangerous. USC should not be in the top 25. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how anybody feels. USC should not be in the top 25. I repeat it. There are more deserving teams than USC. They shouldn't be in the top 25. If you want to argue Iowa State, if you want to argue a team like Virginia Tech, who I think is on the cusp of doing something major this season, there are teams that you can argue to be in the top 25. I'm not so certain that USC should be up there. I do like the team in Raleigh, and Iowa closes out the top 25. I feel like they've been like a staple tier 2 team in the Big Ten for a very long time. They made the conference championship. I know a lot of people say, well, they were on the easier side of the divisions. Divisions are out of the way, and you'll still see, even with the inability Iowa has offensively, but maybe they'll get a little bit more out of Tim Lester than they was able to get out of Brian Ferentz last season. So let's get into our next segment. We are going to talk about Georgia Tech versus Florida State. Dublin, Ireland. College game day is going to be there. I can't believe like we're in a week and we're talking about college football. Anybody who has been following this channel for a while, or seeing what we've been doing over at CFB Nation, seeing what we doing Overreaction Monday, seeing what we do on College Football Showdown, they know that we put the work in. There's this thing called the offseason. Is what it is. Some people believe in it, some people don't. We're on the side of people that don't. So I'm happy that we get football back this weekend. This isn't the only good game. It's the biggest game that a lot of people are talking about. Like, I can't wait to see what SMU looks like. I can't wait to see what their quarterback controversy, how's that going to end? Like, I'm not sure if they named the starter yet, but it's going to be interesting. They play Nevada this weekend. But this is the big game that everybody wants to talk about. So let's move right along. I'm going to get into this next slide. It's hard for me to see at this angle. My computer's at. Hopefully go to the right thing. So boom, let's talk about Georgia Tech for a second. I think Georgia Tech is one of those truly, supremely, underrated teams. And the thing that makes Georgia Tech so interesting this year, and I feel like a lot of people are just kind of like, I don't know. And maybe that is because their strength of schedule. Only team not in the SEC that has a top 10 strength of schedule. Their strength of schedule is number 9. They ranked 43rd offensively last season. Not too shabby. Not the greatest, but not too shabby. They did have supreme balance, though, offensively. They averaged 31 points per game and averaged 200 yards rushing and 200 yards passing last year. Haynes King had 27 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, also had 648 yards rushing and 9 scores on the ground. Jamal Haynes is just Mr. Do-It-All. 1,059 yards rushing last year, 7 TDs. He's electrifying in the open field, and he left a lot of meat on the bone, if I'm being honest. When we look at what he's able to do as a pass catcher, he's naturally a pass catcher. He's a wide receiver converted to running back. I like what this kid is able to bring to this backfield. And if they have a chance to win this weekend, it's definitely going to have to be a huge Jamal Haynes game this week. Let's look at their entire offense, though. Let's take a look at their offense. Let's see what they're looking like offensively. Quarterback, of course, we got Haynes King. Talked a little bit about him earlier. And Moon, I think, hit it right on the nail. A lot of people want to bring up interceptions. But when do interceptions happen? It's almost like how Joe Burrow says. Like he says that sometimes sacks is an stated thing. Like sometimes we put too much emphasis on sacks. He's like, when do they happen? So running back Jamal Haynes, I just talked about him. We got Chase Lane at wide out. We got Eric Singleton Jr. at wide out. We got Malik Rutherford at wide out. And then at left tackle, we got Ethan McKinney. We got Joe Fulsey at left guard, Weston Franklin at center, Keelan Rutledge, right guard, right tackle is Jordan Williams. Overall, like I said, I like this team. I like the coach. I've spoke highly about Brent Key. Since I got a chance to meet him at ACC Media Days last year, I thought Brent Key, overall has done a phenomenal job with the rebuilding of this program, being able to get recruits. This team and this game is truly going to come down to, I think, can Alex Atkins and Florida State, how well they get it going offensively, and then can Tyler Santucci get stops defensively? I think that'll come down to. But let's look at the Florida State side now. So, Florida State, first thing I want to talk about with them, they were 19th offensively last season, averaging 34.6 points per game. That's total offense. They were 19th. 18th defensively last year, only allowing 19.3 points per game. Supreme balance. They was able to average 150 yards rushing and 251 yards passing through the air. Alex Atkins' ability to get the best out of his players, I think we're going to see the key. Like, a lot of people don't remember, like, Jordan Travis struggled at Louisville. There came a time that Jordan Travis was almost considering being done with the football. So it's amazing that he's actually in the NFL right now. And I feel like when Mike Novell and Alex Atkins were able to get out of him, help propel him to the NFL. And this, if he didn't get injured, he'd have been a much higher draft pick. But DJU, I think, is somebody interesting to talk about. He's familiar with the ACC. The fact that we got an ACC conference game on week 0 is incredible. Like Conference USA, I think, gave us 2 or 3 games last year that were conference games, and they really mattered at the end of the year when you start looking at, hey, how do these games, matter? How does the conference standings lay out? So to get a week 1 game like this, I feel like Georgia Tech has a huge opportunity to kind of get a sneaky one. When you think about it, what team is going to Dublin, Ireland at Aviva Stadium? What team is going with a business as usual mindset? And what team is going as, we going to another country? This is a vacation. Both teams have to have that business as usual mindset. One of the things I like to see, and I like to analyze this game, and I'm a weirdo, I'll admit it. One of the things I like to analyze is how much more of an effect is the green dot over the game than not having it in the past. In the past, everybody did the signs. We all know about the Connor Stallions and the sign stealing situation. But, looking at this from a cup half full, it's like, wow, we got the green dot now. You get more communication. I think it's to the last 15 seconds of the play clock. So if you get to the line of scrimmage and you give the offensive coordinator about 7 seconds to dissect the defense, he's able to get a last-second call if he needs to the quarterback in his headset of what to watch for. So I can't wait to see the green dot. We're going to see DJU have his best year in college. I thought Jonathan Smith in Oregon did a great job with him last year. Had a lot of up and down during his time in Clemson, and it was tumultuous, some of which because, they had a shiny new toy in Cade Klubnik. He experienced offensive changes as well. So things will be interesting, to say the least, for this Florida State team this upcoming year. When I look at this game, like I said, it comes down to, can Georgia Tech get enough stops? I know Georgia Tech can put up points. We've seen Georgia Tech go at it with some of the best teams last year. Like, think about that opening day game that they had week 1 last season versus Louisville. Louisville ended up in the conference championship, and if you looked at the first half, maybe not the full first half, maybe like the first 25 minutes of that game, it looked like Georgia Tech had the victory, and then Louisville was able to snap into it and win the game. But this team was able to go toe-to-toe with some good teams last year. It's, can they weather the storm? Yes, we know it's big bad Florida State. Florida State just won the conference last year. They ran through the conference. I've said this on another show, and I'll say it again here. There will be no team in the ACC that goes undefeated. I am fully confident that there will be no team in the ACC that goes undefeated. Will this be Georgia Tech's opportunity to steal a win? I think this game is going to be closer than the lines are saying. I believe FanDuel, the last I checked, had Florida State as -11. On the spread, I'm just talking spread alone, I would probably take Georgia Tech. Just the environment is not a home game for neither team, even though I think it's classified as a home game for Georgia Tech. You're in a different stadium. We've seen magic in that stadium before, especially with, I believe it was Nebraska, Northwestern a couple years ago when Scott Frost gave us so much content, bro. 2022 was classic for content, but yeah, Scott Frost gave us so much content. And I think that last year's game was it Notre Dame and Navy, that game? So I think this will be a much better game than that last year's game was. I think this will be more aligned with the Nebraska, Northwestern, two conference foes just going at it, battling for a win. Just look out for a big play in the fourth quarter defensively. We don't know if it'll be Tyler Sankuki's team or if Mike Norvell and company and then will be able to make a play, if Patrick Payton will be able to get a sack fumble, or they're able to force Haynes Keenan to throw an interception. But I like Florida State. Not by 11, though. I like Florida State by about 7 points. As I always like to say, there are no more victories in the sport that survive in advance. That's why college football has the greatest regular season. And until next time, y'all already know what it is. Take care. One. Governor of college football. We're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's
Two
CJ
great defensive
on
minds.
the
They have to be better on that side of the ball.